The book rested on an old table, covered in a layer of dust so fine it looked like snow forgotten by time. The golden light streaming through the window didn't just illuminate it, it seemed to recognize its presence. Every particle in the air drifted slowly, as if caught in a rhythm only the book understood. It was no ordinary book. There was no visible title on its cover, no letters embossed in gold. It was as if it carried, in silence, a truth so intense that any word would fall short. The aged leather bore the marks of hands that didn't belong to a single century. Before birth, before opening its eyes to this life, the soul crossed a space that could not be measured. There was no night, no day, only a living silence, like the suspended instant between the flap of two wings. In that space, every vibration, every thought, echoed across infinite distances. There, time wasn't a line, but a still lake where all moments existed at once. And it was within that lake that the call arose. It wasn't a sound. It was deeper than that, a sensation that began at the center of one's being and expanded outward like invisible waves. The call didn't come from outside. It was born within, yet pointed toward something beyond. In that moment, the soul knew it was about to cross over, about to trade the vastness of infinity for the narrow, intense experience of being human. But before taking that step, there was a ritual, a reading, the book of life. Not a metaphor, not a symbol, but something real, so real that the mere memory of touching its pages could awaken something long dormant. Few had seen it. Fewer still had dared to open it. For what is written there cannot be erased. It cannot be forgotten. As the soul drew closer, a sensation took hold, weight and lightness at the same time. It was as if every possible destiny was gathered there, waiting for a choice, one among millions, and yet the only one that would make sense. Each step brought the soul nearer to the moment it would see and choose the life it was about to live. But something felt strange. Something that wasn't in the air, nor in the light, but in the very heart of the soul. As if, upon opening the book, it would discover not only where it was going, but also everything it would have to forget in order to get there. And it is on this threshold, this moment between knowing and forgetting, that the story begins. Because once the book is opened, nothing will ever be the same again. But the book is not alone. It is kept in a place where time does not exist. Imagine a space so vast that no human measure could ever describe it. There was no ceiling to be seen, no floor to be touched, only an infinite expanse of gentle light, a light that didn't hurt the eyes but wrapped around them like an ancient embrace. The air there did not move. There was no wind, and yet everything seemed to breathe. Invisible walls rose like crystal veils, reflecting not the body, but the essence of whoever passed through. Each reflection was a moment, a life once lived, a forgotten encounter, a smile that, at some point, had changed a destiny. At the center, the book. Always there. Always open, yet never on the same page as before. It needed no hands to be turned. The pages moved on their own, as if obeying an inaudible melody. And then, there was the guardian. It had no face, no defined form, just an outline made of pure consciousness, shifting between light and shadow. Its presence did not bring fear, but reverence. It did not judge, did not interfere. It simply observed, as if it were the living memory of everything that had ever been. When a name was spoken, not with a voice, but with the vibration of the soul, the pages began to turn at an almost imperceptible speed until they stopped at an exact point. It was as if the very fabric of time folded toward that moment. Each letter engraved on the page seemed to be made of liquid light, and it didn't matter what language the soul had known. It understood everything. For these were not ordinary words. They were condensed memories, distilled experiences, sealed promises. It was in this hall that all stories began and ended. But there was one unsettling detail. As immense as the place was, it was not empty. There were echoes, traces of footsteps that were not your own. Shadows of other souls who had been there before, choosing, hesitating, turning back. Some of them, contrary to what one might think, did not want to leave for life. They wanted to remain in eternity. The guardian knew, and with each soul that arrived, there was a silent, almost imperceptible moment in which it seemed to ask an unspoken question. Are you ready to forget who you are in order to become who you need to be? The answer was almost never spoken aloud. It was an inner movement, a silent nod born at the very center of consciousness. And when that happened, the book prepared to open not just pages, but destinies. But not every soul can open the book. There is a key, and it is not made of metal or of words. There were no visible locks on the book, no clasp, no arcane symbol carved into its cover. And yet, it would not open for just anyone. The soul needed something that could not be found outside itself. A key not made of metal, but of frequency. A unique signature shaped by everything the soul had ever lived, and, in a mysterious way, by everything it had yet to live. They say this key cannot be forged in haste. It is born over many lifetimes, woven from choices, sacrifices, lessons, and pains. It is like a melody that only becomes complete when every note, even the most dissonant, finds its place. In the hall, before approaching the book, the soul is wrapped in a dense silence. And it is within this silence that the test takes place. It is not a judgment, it is a recognition. The right vibration is not loud. It is not grand. It pulses intimately, almost shyly, like the sound of a heart that knows it is exactly where it should be. When this frequency awakens, the soul's subtle body responds. A warmth rises in the hands, a gentle weight settles in the chest, as if something were being anchored there. The air seems to vibrate in a deep, low tone, a resonance not heard with the ears, but with the whole being. In that instant, the book perceives the presence. Like an old friend recognizing a face in a crowd, it leans forward, offering its pages, not out of obligation, but out of kinship. The first page to open does not reveal names, dates, or places. It reveals sensations. A succession of vague images, diffused lights, distant sounds, memories of past lives blending with glimpses of what is yet to come. It is as if the future and the past touched for a brief second, and the soul stood exactly at the point where those two worlds meet. But there is one detail few notice. The book does not choose alone. It opens to present possible paths, each one compatible with the soul's essence at that moment. And it is the soul itself that must decide which one to walk. And here, a silent question begins to take form. Was it you who chose, or were you chosen? That doubt drifts through the hall like a cold breath. For as the soul gazes at each possible route, it feels a strange mixture of familiarity and strangeness, as if all the paths had already been walked, and yet none were truly known. The guardian does not interfere. It only observes. For it knows the choice is not only about a life, it is about the kind of being the soul will become. But before the final choice, there is a moment when other consciousnesses gather, and nothing spoken there can ever be forgotten. Before the final page is touched, the soul is led into another space. or perhaps into another dimension within the same hall. There's no light as we know it. The space is filled with a gentle glow that seems to come from within the very presences gathered. They are consciousnesses. They have no body, no face, no age. They are like sparks wrapped in cloaks of energy, each with its own color and intensity. Some burn like new fire, alive, restless. Others emanate a deep, silent light, like ancient embers carrying centuries of stories. This is the Council of Souls. It is not a court. It is not a hierarchy. It is a sacred circle where truth needs no words, because it is felt. There, the souls who have shared past lives with you appear. Some, silent friends. Others, adversaries who shaped your character through conflict. There are loves left unfinished, broken alliances, promises that have survived death itself. The encounter is intense. Each energetic gaze carries the weight of stories beyond any human memory. There is no lying here, not to others, not to yourself. And it is in this space that the negotiations take place. Yes, negotiations. For each life is a tapestry, and the thread you pull also tugs at the threads of other souls. You may need someone to play the role of teacher, of enemy, of lost love. And likewise, you will be asked to play roles for others. Some agreements are sealed with tenderness, like the silent embrace of two souls who know they must meet to heal something ancient. Others are harder, pacts of pain, meant to teach through absence, loss, and separation. The council witnesses everything. When a decision seems final, an invisible seal wraps around the pact, a vibration that records that choice into the memory of the book. And from that moment on, there is no turning back. But there is something few realize. Not every agreement made here is fulfilled. Some are lost in the twists of free will, in the distractions of the physical world. Others, however, become invisible chains that pull us life after life. Perhaps you feel it now, a weight, a bond, a repetition you cannot explain. It may be nothing more than the shadow of an ancient agreement, still active, still waiting to be fulfilled or broken. And it is then that the book begins to show what is to come, not as words, but as a living map that pulses beneath your hands. When the council falls silent and the presences dissolve like mist under the sun, the soul returns to the book. But now, it is no longer as it was before. The pages seem alive. They are not made of paper. They are made of something that breathes, pulses, and responds to touch. When the soul places its hand on the surface, it does not read. It feels. And then it begins. Images appear not before the eyes, but within the very core of the being. An open field, the smell of wet earth after rain. An empty room, the echo of muffled sobs. An embrace so intense the heart longs to remain in it forever. Everything appears without chronological order, as if life were shown in fragments, key moments carrying more weight than entire years. Each scene is accompanied by an emotion so vivid it almost hurts. The soul's subtle body reacts. A shiver, sudden warmth, a tightness in the chest. The book does not merely reveal what will happen. It transmits what it will feel like to be there. The joys are so vibrant they seem to set the very air aflame. The pains arrive like icy waves, and the soul understands that each one carries a hidden purpose, a key to unlock something still sealed. There is no chance here. Every encounter, every farewell, every unexpected turn in the road is there, not as a fixed destiny, but as a point of convergence. You may reach it by different routes, but inevitably you will arrive. And then, the soul notices a troubling detail. Some pages are not fully written. They hold empty spaces, blank lines, areas that feel like pure possibility. These spaces are what, in the physical world, we call decision. Here, freedom pulses. But so does responsibility. Because even with a map laid out, each choice made can shift the weight of the ones that follow. A single misstep can delay years, sometimes entire lifetimes, of learning. And one act of courage can shorten centuries of repetition. The Guardian watches but does not interfere. For it is here that the paradox begins to take shape. If everything has already been chosen, why the feeling of deciding now? Where does destiny end and free will begin? The soul remains before the book, feeling the weight of everything it has seen. And here is where the dilemma begins to grow, like a silent mist. If every step is already on the map, if the pages already hold the record of joys and pains, then where is freedom? The Guardian does not answer, but an understanding begins to emerge, almost intuitively. Destiny is the route. Free will is the path you choose to take to travel it. The route is what was agreed upon before birth, the inevitable encounters, the necessary trials, the lessons the soul asked to learn, even if they hurt. The path, however, is made of daily choices, small or great, that shape the experience of getting there. It is like a river born in the mountains that must find its way to the sea. The sea is certain, but the course the water will take, straight, winding, calm, or turbulent, depends on the rocks, the banks, and how it responds to each obstacle. Free will is not the absence of destiny. It is the dance between what has already been written and what can still be transformed. But there is a danger. Not every path leads back to the route. There are choices that take the soul so far from its purpose that it becomes lost for years, sometimes for entire lifetimes. And when that happens, the call grows stronger. Strange coincidences, encounters that seem impossible, dreams so vivid they leave marks on the body upon waking. They are reminders, correction points, silent invitations to return to the original line. But ignoring these signs comes at a cost. The book remains there, faithful to what was agreed upon, but the distance between the route and the actual path widens, and with it, the feeling of emptiness, of exhaustion, of living a life that is not fully your own. And perhaps it is precisely in this space between what was written and what is being lived that the most important signs are hidden. And these signs, you have already found them, though you may not have recognized them. At first, they are subtle. So subtle they blend in with coincidence. A chance encounter on the street. A song that begins at the exact moment you need to hear the words you didn't know how to say. A scent that awakens a longing impossible to place in time. They are fragments left by the self that existed before birth. Clues placed along the path to remind you of what was promised in the Council of Souls. Messages that do not arrive in letters or spoken words, but through sensations that pierce logic. Déjà vu is one of the most well-known. It is not merely the feeling of having lived that scene before. It is the echo of a memory that does not belong to this life. A reminder that the map is still being followed, even if you cannot see the road. Other signs come in the form of repetition. Different people, yet with the same gaze. New situations, yet carrying the same wound. It is as if life were saying, "You still haven't understood, let's try again." Then there are the dreams that return. The same house, the same city, the same face. In the dream, everything makes sense. But upon waking, only the feeling remains that it was not invention, but memory. And we cannot forget the synchronicities, those coincidences so precise that even the most skeptical mind hesitates to call them chance. The number that repeats in different places. The name that appears in conversations between people who don't know each other. The phrase that shows up in a book opened at random, answering exactly the question you asked in silence. These signs are like golden threads stitched into the fabric of everyday life. You may not always see them, but when you choose to look closely, you realize they are everywhere. They do not change what was agreed upon, but they can help you remember why you chose this route. The problem is that, in the whirlwind of physical life, we forget to pay attention. And the more we ignore them, the further we drift from the original line. But there is something few know. If the soul recognizes and responds to these signs with awareness, something extraordinary can happen. For the book is not as fixed as it seems, and there are rare moments when it can be rewritten. They say the book of life is immutable, that what was written before birth remains as law until the very last breath. But that is not entirely true. There are rare moments, so rare that some live centuries without ever coming near them, when the soul finds an opening, a crack in the fabric of destiny, a chance to change what once seemed irrevocable. It is not something that can be forced. It is not a trick, nor a ritual repeated out of curiosity. These moments arise when consciousness expands to such a degree that it surpasses the pattern for which it was programmed. It happens when you forgive someone you never imagined you could forgive. When you choose love even with every reason to choose fear. When you break a cycle that seemed carved in stone. A cycle that may have begun lifetimes ago. In these moments, the guardian draws near. Not to influence your choice, but to witness it. For it is in such instance that the soul shows it is ready for more than just following a map. It is ready to redraw it. The book reacts subtly. Sometimes, an entire page fades to white, as if waiting for a new inscription. Other times, words once engraved begin to dissolve, transforming into symbols of pure light. And then, a new route begins to take shape. It does not erase the past. It remains part of the story, but it changes the tone, the weight, the direction. Some call it a miracle, others a quantum leap. But at its core, it is simply the soul remembering it was never fully bound. It is an act of co-authorship with destiny itself. A moment when the book is not merely read, but rewritten by the invisible hand of conscious love. Perhaps you are living through something now that feels unbearable, a breaking point, a pain that does not seem to fit the narrative of your life. Perhaps, and only perhaps, it is exactly the point where the book is offering you a new page. And if that is true, then the last chapter has yet to be written. The book is open. Its pages glow with a gentle light, as if they are waiting for something or someone. There is no rush here. Time, in this space, does not move like it does in the physical world. And yet, there is a sense of silent urgency, as if life itself is patiently awaiting your final decision. The last chapter is unlike any of the others. It holds no defined scenes, no traced lines. It is a space, pure potential. It is the subtle reminder that, even with prior agreements, nothing prevents the soul from adding new shades to its story. That, in truth, the ending is not a verdict, it is a choice. The guardian stays close but does not interfere. Its role is not to tell you what to write, but to remind you that you can. It is in this moment that many souls realize that living is not about following a predetermined script. It is about interacting with it. Every conscious act now echoes far beyond this lifetime. The courage to act, the care to love, the silence to understand, all are etched into subtle layers that remain forever. The last chapter, still unwritten, is an invitation, not to change the entire path already traveled, but to honor what is yet to come. It is like a quill suspended above the page, feeling the weight of what has not yet been spoken, but needs to be. Perhaps in this chapter the soul writes a reconciliation, or decides to free itself from something that has bound it for centuries, or simply chooses to end its story with more light than it began. The page is there. The space is yours. And in the instant you touch that invisible sheet with the right intention, destiny will bend to accommodate your choice. And when the last word is written, there is only one place where the book can return. The hall grows still again. The pages of the book close slowly, as if they were storing not only words, but the very vibration of what has just been decided. There is no sound, only the soft echo of something sealed into the fabric of time. The guardian is there, motionless. Its presence does not impose, demand, or judge. It simply bears witness. And in the unseen gaze that seems to pass through everything, there is a silent understanding. What has been chosen will now be lived. The soul steps forward, holding the book for a brief moment before returning it. The final touch is different from the first. In the beginning, there was expectation, anxiety, even fear. Now there is something deeper, recognition. As if the book were a mirror, and in closing it, the soul was also sealing a pact with itself. The guardian accepts the volume without words. The weight of the book is not physical, and yet, upon handing it over, the soul feels lighter and at the same time more responsible. Because it is impossible to forget entirely. Even when the veil of birth covers memory, something within the chest will keep pulsing as a subtle reminder. The hall begins to dissolve. The light turns into translucent veils that fall slowly until everything around becomes a golden blur. The sound of footsteps that do not exist echoes in the distance. And then, absolute silence. Before the final crossing, the guardian sends one last message, not in words, but in vibration. When you do not know where to go, close your eyes and remember what cannot be forgotten. And then, nothing. The gentle fall into matter. The first breath. The weight of the body. The raw, new light piercing your eyelids for the first time. You are born. And even without remembering, you carry within you the invisible trace of the story you helped write. If everything in this life is a page, let the next word you write be chosen with love. For the soul always remembers, even when you forget.